Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, so glad you're with us for the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch. Jim, we actually have a good martini today, which is, I think, the first time all year so far. I'd like to say, actually, that our long national nightmare is over when it comes to really bad NFL football, but it's really just a hiatus until the fall. We're going to get new coaches and everything, but come on.
We've gone from regular season stinking to the off-season stinking, although you could probably argue for the Jets and the Bears. They kind of mentally were in off-season pretty early in the year. I also want to say happy what should be the real start of the work year, Greg. Today is January 6th. The rest of the country is trying to get to work. And, of course, Fairfax County Public Schools is closed for today. And tomorrow's not looking great either.
You're not going to school tomorrow.
I bet a decent amount of money on a delayed opening on Wednesday morning.
At least a delay. Yeah, it's a legit snowfall today. I don't know what it is so far. My wife says it's looking at 10 to 12 inches. So, it's acceptable today. Tomorrow,
Judging from Facebook, this is the third time in a decade that we've had serious snow on the day the kids were supposed to go back to school. I just want to point that out. And, they were off the entire week in 2022 for snow, which we all know was a code word for Omicron back then in the closing moments of the pandemic.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So a new school year, new political leaders coming in, not only in this country. Today's the Electoral College vote. We also are going to have a big change, not a surprise, north of the border, which we'll talk about in just a moment. So, Jim, a lot of lefties we're not sorry to see go are about to leave office. So, that's not a bad way to kick off the week, right? Well, let's talk about Omaha Steaks. Talked about them a lot heading into the Christmas season. I hope you ordered one for a loved one, for a family friend, maybe even for yourself. And I hope you understand now how great Omaha Steaks are. Our latest box, the steaks were incredible. Of course, the burgers, the sides, the steak cut fries, the desserts, so much more. And so the good news is there's still a good deal on. Right now you can subscribe at omahasteaks.com/3ml and get 12 free Omaha Steaks burgers in every shipment. That's a value of $431 a year. Plus, you'll get an extra 10% off and free shipping for the life of your subscription. I've gotten Omaha Steaks many times. First time I ever got them was when our first daughter was born. A friend sent them, and what a huge help it was, not only in meal prep at a chaotic time like that, but just so good. And I've never been disappointed by anything I got from Omaha Steaks. And so the new Omaha Steaks subscription plan gives you commitment-free flexibility with the ability to skip a shipment, swap selections, change your frequency, or cancel at any time. Also, more than 300 selections to choose from. Omaha Steaks offers unmatched variety. So again, make life easier by subscribing to the best. Subscribe to Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com/3ml and get 12 free burgers and free shipping for the life of your subscription. Plus an extra 10% off today and on every subsequent subscription shipment. All right, Jim, we kind of knew this was coming. It's the subject of your morning jolt today. We knew it late last year, but the timing of this is a little bit curious. Pierre Poilievre, the conservative leader who we hope is the next prime minister in Canada, said the main reason that the coalition partners for Justin Trudeau's Liberal Party didn't force a no-confidence vote late last year is because if they pushed it into early this year, they got their pensions. And so there's a big money benefit to the coalition sticking together until now. They know that Trudeau's a definite loser coming in later this year when they have to have elections at some point in the next several months. So today in Ottawa, Justin Trudeau says, au revoir.
I intend to resign as party leader, as prime minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process.
So, Jim, I don't know how Canadians put up with that fake, dramatic, emotional voice for 9 years, but hopefully they're just rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic for the Liberal Party here, and Poilievre is going to be in charge here in a number of months. But it was basically time to go. I think if Trudeau didn't do this, there was going to be a no confidence vote because the coalition on the left knows there's no chance of winning with him at the helm.
Yeah, a couple of the basic mechanics here. In a parliamentary system like Canada's, the UK's, they don't necessarily have set schedules of when an election is going to happen. The party in power can call one whenever they want. And usually they have them pretty darn quick. I know in the UK it can be as short as, 3 weeks to 2 months after they say, hey, we're having an election. So the entire campaign season gets very abbreviated. Well, the deadline for having another one was October. So we kind of knew at some point this year it was going to occur. Polling indicates the Conservative Party is well ahead. Now, Canada is the kind of parliamentary system where you can be a minority party. You don't have to win a majority of the seats. If you win the most seats, you get to effectively run the government, choose the prime minister, choose the cabinet, stuff like that. But it looks like the Conservative Party, as of a poll in like mid-December, anywhere from like 200 to 240 of the 313 seats. So they were going to have not just a majority, but a considerable majority. So you could be seeing a really dramatic swing in Canadian policies. Justin Trudeau looks like he stepped out of a catalog. And, he's so handsome and so dreamy and so progressive. So I'm going to describe, I wrote about this, you said, in today's Morning Jolt, and I tried to kind of summarize it as best I could in a way that Americans can understand. Unfortunately, it's just so totally different from what we have here in the United States, Greg. You see, Canada had a long stretch of high inflation. People's feeling about the economy were really down. Crime rates were up pretty high. Immigration, basically anybody who wants to get into the country can. They have very lax enforcement. It's turned out to be very unpopular. They're not spending nearly enough on defense, and their foreign policy is very focused on symbolic gestures, really kind of asleep at the wheel about real and growing threats. Now, as Americans, Americans just don't know what that's like. That's just totally alien to us. But you have to stick with me here. So they had a leader who's like increasingly hapless and couldn't communicate very well. And they saw this really bad electoral wipeout coming, so the party of the left wanted to switch him out before it was too late and at least put somebody else in there and see if they could do any. Again, Americans don't know what this is like. Okay, obviously, we know exactly what this is like. There are really weird, eerie parallels to this. Obviously, Joe Biden is a heck of a lot older, foreshadowing our future martinis today. But there's a real, these problem that has afflicted a lot of incumbent parties, particularly on the left, since COVID. High inflation, economic pessimism, cost of living. Canada has a real problem with housing prices. All of that added up to become intolerable. And, first of all, 9 years is a long time in politics. I think it's safe to say Trudeau wore out his welcome. And the progressive, some would argue, hard left approach of the Trudeau government has run the country, either you could say to the ground, or it's gone as far as it can go. And the voters are just saying very clear, we can't wait to get rid of these guys, including this guy, Trudeau.
No, that's exactly right. The carbon tax has just been absolutely devastating on families. The cost of living is to the point where there's a huge homeless problem there because people literally cannot afford housing at this point. And so it is a dire situation. Yes, it's good for the Conservative Party, but there's a lot of problems in Canada that need to be addressed quickly. And Jim, I don't know enough about the Liberal Party in Canada, about who would replace Justin Trudeau. I know that Chrystia Freeland dropped out of his administration, resigned. She had been the one to, freeze the bank accounts of the people that were supporting the truckers back in the day. So I'm not one to give advice to Canadian politicians. I will point out, though, that Kamala Harris is soon to be unemployed, and she spent her teenage years in Canada because her mother was working up there as a
weird
as a
parallels.
Yeah, so I don't know if she's
Liberal
eligible.
Party, you're looking for somebody,
And she's got experience about replacing a hapless lefty at the last second. So
there you go. Yeah,
I won't get into the details about the results
Who do we have
of her
who's
doing
experienced for these kinds of circumstances?
Anyway, hopefully it's Polyev in just a few months because so far what we've seen from that guy is fantastic. So we'll find out. But in the meantime, the 3 Martini Lunch is sponsored by BetterHelp. And, a lot of people make resolutions at the beginning of 2025. What do you want this year to be? Do you want it to be the same old, same old? Maybe it's going really well. Maybe it's going fine, but maybe there's frustrations, things that have been holding you back, things that just keep weighing on your mind and you can't get past them. Maybe this is the year to get some help with that, and BetterHelp is the way to do that.
BetterHelp is fully online and making therapy affordable and convenient, serving more than 5 million people worldwide. You can access a diverse network of more than 30,000 credentialed therapists with a wide range of specialties. And you can easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost.
So what's this year going to be like for you, 2025? It's time to write that story for yourself. Write your story with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/3ML to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/3ML. All right, Jim, let's get to our bad martini now. And Joe Biden over the last several days has not secretly, but weirdly given out a ton of awards. Benny Thompson and Liz Cheney got the second best civilian award last week. And then a whole raft of Presidential Medals of Freedom were given out on Saturday, and we didn't know the list until Saturday morning. I don't think that's the way things are normally done. There's a lot of questionable names on this list. It's a long list, first of all, so not a lot of scrutiny going on. This has long been a way to give political allies an honor on your way out the door. And usually it's the Hollywood people that are the most annoying. This year, I think the Hollywood people are the least annoying on this list, with Denzel Washington and Michael J. Fox. Bono, that doesn't bother me too much. Ash Carter posthumously getting that award. Hillary Clinton, not a surprise, but it's repulsive given Magic Johnson, great player. Not sure why he's getting the award. Other activists in different areas, LGBT folks. Bill Nye, the science guy, for heaven's sake. David Rubenstein, who a lot of people don't know. He's from the Carlyle Group, but he's also been really influential in some of these presidential sites like Monticello and James Madison's Montpelier and Mount Vernon. And he's kind of behind the reason that they've gotten woke. Like at James Madison, they were talking about slavery in a video and then compared it to Ferguson. That's when Mrs. Columbus and I got up and walked out of the video presentation at James Madison's estate. And they almost don't say anything about Jefferson or Madison's time as president. But that's not the point here on this particular martini. George Soros. George Soros, who has probably done more than any single individual to undermine this country in the last number of decades, gets an award. He wasn't there to pick it up himself. His son was there. But listen to this presidential citation.
The Presidential Medal of Freedom is awarded to George Soros. Born into a Jewish family in Hungary, George Soros escaped Nazi occupation to build a life of freedom for himself and countless others around the world. Educated in England, he settled in America as he became an investor and philanthropist, supporting key pillars of open societies: rights and justice, equity and equality, freedom now and in the future. His inspiring generosity reminds us all of our capacity and our obligation to stand up to the abuse of power and to be guardians of democracy and all people yearning to be free.
Just pure gaslighting. I mean, every radical nut job, often violent movement in this country usually has some sort of tentacles from George Soros. The Media Matters lies, bankrolling these radical prosecutors in city after city that have led to mayhem. He's just a guy that's trying to destabilize and undermine the pillars of this society. And for Biden to honor him and to gaslight us like that is just repulsive.
Well, first of all, as you mentioned, Greg, we had 19 this past Saturday. It does feel like what was once... It's apparently the nation's highest honor that can be awarded by the President of the United States, once reserved for people who are just indisputably deserving and whose record was just, beyond question. Now we have the White House popping them out like a Pez dispenser. You get a Presidential Freedom Award. You get a Presidential... Everybody gets a Presidential Freedom Award. But how did Oprah not get one? Or maybe she got it in previous years. By the way, I will dig into Soros in a second, but you know what really jumped out at me, Greg?
What?
Lionel Messi? I don't think he speaks English. He did a lot.
In this country a few months, maybe a couple years.
I was going to say, he joined MLS, Major League Soccer, and boosted attendance. That's all it takes anymore. And the citation was that he made soccer more popular. It's only the most popular sport in the entire world. But he made it more popular amongst Americans. And what they mean is a very small demographic of Americans, that includes my brother. And I'm going to get some grief about this. And, I coached, I was the world's worst soccer coach. I understand the popularity of the sport. But Lionel Messi really makes the cut. Who got left out for that one? Urkel? Who are the figures who were like, you were just this close to getting a Presidential Medal of Freedom? Look, George Soros has been a favorite villain of the right going back for decades. One of the first National Review covers I had my name appeared on for a major piece was after the 2004 election. It showed Soros holding up his T-shirt and saying something like, "I spent $30 million to influence the election, and all I got was this lousy T-shirt." Of that. Has not stopped. You mentioned the progressive DAs. Every once in a while, you'll see someone on the right argue that he collaborated with Nazis, and that's not really the case. He helped one. He was basically there trying to sneak him out of the country. He helped with inventory. It was not really involved in the confiscation of property from the Jews and things like that. There are a lot of really legitimate reasons to go after for Soros. And I went back and I just kind of checked. 2006, he said the main obstacle to a stable and just world is the United States. Not Iran, not Russia, not China, not Islamist terrorist groups, not transnational crime. In 2010, he said that China has a better functioning government than the United States. Well, I guess it all depends on how we define functioning. But if you run around saying that the autocrats in Beijing are doing a better job than Americans, you probably shouldn't get the Presidential Freedom Award. Now, should you? That one stands out there. 2007, quote, I do believe that attitudes towards Israel are influenced by Israel's policies, and attitudes towards the Jewish community are influenced by the pro-Israel lobby's success in suppressing divergent views. Like, there's a lot of reasons to have real beefs with George Soros. I expect, and we'll discuss about this a bit more in our next Martini, I expect nothing less from the closing days of Joe Biden. There is this crazy Eddie-esque closing, everything must go vibe to everything that they're doing these days. Hey, Anna Wintour, didn't, they make a great movie about her, The Devil Wears Prada? Quick, let's give her a Presidential Freedom Award. Basically, I imagine at some point in the not too distant future, there will just be a web page of the DNC that says, if you donate this much, the president will give you a Presidential Freedom Award, because that's almost all of these figures are Democratic Party donors. And it certainly looks like the nation's highest honor is being used as a donor reward program instead of giving it to genuinely rewarding ones. Now, I'll point out, this doesn't mean everybody who got him, was a ridiculous choice. I didn't hear anybody complain about Denzel. I think he did. Bono, Jose Andres, these guys have done really, enormous charitable work in some very tough circumstances. So I don't, it's not all of them are bad. I think it's the way you try to slip in these big name liberal donors really is kind of irritating. And the Biden administration is closing on every sour note imaginable.
Yeah, and we'll get into that in just a little bit more. But Soros has also been very closely connected to the student organizations, the anti-Semitic protests on campuses last spring for sure, and who knows when they're going to fire up again. But he's if anything destabilizing in this country, you can bet that George Soros has got his finger in the pie. And so it's just absolutely disgusting. And usually, even Obama used to throw a bone to a couple of Republicans. He had Jack Kemp posthumously, and George H.W. Bush was there. The only one that's even remotely in that category is George Romney, who was governor of Michigan. But let's be honest, he's rewarding Mitt Romney for voting to impeach Trump, right?
Yep. Yes.
Just so we're clear on all that. But all right, let's talk about NetSuite. Because look, if your business is starting the new year, you want to get off to a great start. You don't know exactly what's going to happen, whether the markets are going to be up, interest rates are up or down, inflation up or down. Hopefully things head in the right direction. But for over 38,000 businesses, they've future-proofed their operations with NetSuite by Oracle, the leading cloud ERP platform. It integrates key business functions like accounting, financial management, inventory, and HR into one seamless system, ensuring that businesses, including yours, are ready for the future.
With a unified business management suite, NetSuite gives you complete visibility and control, enabling quick and informed decisions based on real-time data. Closing your books in days, not weeks, mean you spend less time on past reports and more time focusing on future growth. This efficiency lets you shift your attention from historical tasks to strategic initiatives that will drive your business forward.
Let these technologies do the work for you. I talk with business experts and small business owners pretty frequently, and I got to tell you that keeping your mind on the things that matter most and letting these tools do the work for you on the other things is a huge, huge asset. So NetSuite by Oracle is definitely the way to go. In addition, they allow you to download the CFO's Guide to AI and Machine Learning at netsuite.com/martini. The guide is free to you at netsuite.com/martini. That's netsuite.com/martini. All right, Jim, on our crazy martini here, Joe Biden on a couple other things and basically giving America the middle finger on the way out the door. Two things environmentally that we're looking at here. First of all, Biden is now announcing that he's going to ban all future offshore oil and natural gas drilling on America's east and west coasts, the eastern Gulf of Mexico, and Alaska's North Bering Sea. That includes more than 625 million acres of U.S. oceans. And in addition to that fact, it seems like an executive order, but according to ABC News, the law Biden used to do this, the Outer Continental Shelf Lands Act, was written so a presidential action under its authority is permanent, differing from other executive actions. If the Trump administration were to attempt to reverse Biden's actions, Congress would likely have to change the law. Now, for his part, Trump was on Hugh Hewitt's show, which I know you're on as well. And here's what Trump vowed to do.
I see it just came over that Biden has banned all oil and gas drilling across 625 million acres of U.S. coastal territory. It's ridiculous. I'll unban it immediately.
And so we'll see if he can get away with that just through an executive order, or whether it's got to be part of legislation. Not to be outdone there, he's also quietly finalized some climate regulations to ban most natural gas-powered instantaneous water heaters, a move that critics say will drive up costs for consumers. You know, we had that whole gas stove debate where they were definitely moving in that direction, and then the backlash happened, and they said, "Oh no, we're just barely talking about it," because they knew that they weren't going to get away with it at that time. So now that he's got nothing to lose, might as well go after the natural gas appliances once again. And then, Jim, you flagged this one. I think this was at the Medal of Freedom ceremony, but I'm not sure. So pardon the music. Pardon the music in the background. He's mad at reporters again, basically saying here that yeah, I'm old, but I know everyone in the world.
The only thing, my being the oldest president, I know more world leaders than any one of you ever met in your whole life, and I know them. I know how they think. Not a joke. What really hurts is when we talk about immigration the way we do.
You know, which ones are still alive is the problem. So, Jim, what do you make of the way Biden is going out, from the pardons to these ridiculous medals he's giving out to this environmental giveaways to make life harder for getting energy independent and becoming stronger in energy independence? It's like he's stepping on every rake or thumbing everybody's eyes as he's walking out the door.
Oh, definitely more of the latter. For listeners, I just emphasize that was actual. It was a GD bad word, not the F word bad word that he did in the bleeped part. And no, that was not Dana Carvey impersonating him. No joke. And by the way, another thing. So a little while ago, my colleague Jeff Blahar asked a really uncomfortable question, which was, how legally valid are all of President Biden's executive orders and really everything he does as president if he is not as sound mind? And if you could somehow challenge in court that the president was not in his right mind when he took a particular action, could you invalidate that action? I don't think the Supreme Court or any of the court will really take up that issue seriously, because if you did, you might have to go back to President Biden's first day in office. We had heard about spring 2021, him canceling meetings with national security advisors because he just wasn't up to it. How do you measure when Joe Biden was no longer of sound mind? Oh, by the way, you and I were out on break, but at one point he said that he and his advisors believe if he'd stayed in the race, he could have won.
Yeah,
he would have beaten. Yeah, like just Your Honor, what more do I need to show you? This guy is no longer of sound mind, right? By the way, you'd think that if the president does something by executive order, it could be undone by another executive order. I don't understand why this cordoning off of federal waters would be an exception to this. Republican Congress could well pass legislation to undo Biden's change, but it just feels like an unnecessary step. But I'll leave that to the greater legal minds than me. But I am starting to come around to something that would probably require a constitutional amendment to change, and it's very difficult to change. But in parliamentary systems, you lose the election and you're packing up your stuff and you're out within a couple of days. There's usually a very short period of, if, as we suspect, the Conservative Party wins a majority, you'll see a new prime minister there. It's like within a week or so. It goes pretty darn fast. Yeah. We have election day, the first Tuesday in November. Inauguration day is always January 20th. We always have this period in between. And it was there meant to establish obviously you need time for a transition. The president needs to interview cabinet officials and put them in and make the selections. Like usually you need some space in between those two. And you're trying to have the smoothest transition possible. As with so many other things, including the pardon power, including the commutation of sentences, and who gets the Presidential Medal of Freedom and all that stuff, this all just kind of assumes the occupant of the Oval Office is going to behave responsibly and is going to want to have a smooth transition with their successor. And that even if they have vehement political disagreements, that the guy who's leaving office is not going to do everything conceivable to gum up the works for his successor. As I wrote, this does kind of make the taking away the W keys on the keyboards that Bill Clinton's team did for, by the way, $15,000 in damage. Bill Clinton, in his latest book, which I'm trudging my way through here, 500 some pages, Everything was very exaggerated. No, it wasn't. General Accounting Office went through, counted up the damage, $50,000 in damage to government property. But anyway, but it just seems like with every passing one, it gets worse. And it's one of those things where when you or your party lose the election, that is not a permission slip to do everything you've ever wanted to do because you're no longer accountable to the voters. And unfortunately, that seems like the mentality that is gaining more and more strength with each passing 4 years. So extraordinarily frustrating. I don't think we'll ever, people will be outraged by it, and then we'll forget about it. And nobody will actually make those changes to bring Inauguration Day and Election Day closer. I don't want to change it, but it just feels like it's now turned into this 2.5-month window for the outgoing president and his staff to create as much mischief as possible and try to gum up as much sand in the gears so that their successors can't enact the changes that they want, which is not the way our system is supposed to work.
Usually, back when we were kids, the most controversial thing that would ever happen during a lame duck is the pardons that came at the very, very end. And then, we got the Steele dossier and all that came out just about a week before Trump was sworn in. And then obviously Trump's reaction to the election in 2020 made that intervening time very unusual. And now we've got Biden just doing everything he can to show the world that he's exactly who we thought he was. While it's annoying and frustrating and creates a lot of frustration for the incoming administration, it's very clarifying because there's this media narrative out there when they're not still trying to push the idea, like Chuck Schumer was this weekend, that he's still with it, but that he's this decent guy, this empathetic guy, he's this moderate guy. No, never was, still isn't.
President Biden, don't go away angry. Just go away.
He's got the Carter funeral coming up later this week where he's giving the eulogy. He'll be at the inauguration. And after that, I'm not sure we're going to see Joe.
That might be the last we see of Joe Biden for a good long time.
Yep, that might be the last time we see him in public, barring some other major event. So, Jim, great to start the week with you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Do subscribe to the podcast if you don't already. Tell your friends about us as well. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch podcast. Follow us on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a great Monday. Join us again on Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.